What's up, boys? In this video, I'm going to be showcasing an amazing tandem drift competition in GTA 5. Yes guys, you heard that right. I finally had the pleasure of joining and participating in an awesome tandem drift competition in GTA 5. I want to give a huge shout out to the Unknown Drift and Carbon Canyon Runners teams for having me. This competition was super exciting with some amazing tandem battles that I'll be showcasing in this video. Now definitely go ahead and join the Carbon Canyon Runners Discord server if you want to partake in these events for yourself. That will be linked in both the pinned comment as well as the description of this video. And also while you're at it, definitely go ahead and check out the links to each team's socials if you want to see more awesome coverage of events just like this one. Now with that all out of the way, this competition pretty much worked like a standard Formula Drift event. This event was restricted to either the Karen Fudo, the Fudo GTX, or the Annis Remus to keep things somewhat balanced. After some practice, each driver was randomly paired up with another driver as their tandem buddy, where they each have a lead in a chase run to prove themselves. Now for this competition, all of the spectators that weren't driving paid attention to each drifter's angle, their proximity to the other driver, as well as their ability to follow the set line, which you can actually see me running here. This is located at the Vinewood Bowl for anybody that's interested in visiting the spot for yourselves. Now after each lead and chase run, we all voted for who did everything the best, so that way we can narrow down the list from the 11 drifters to start to the final winner. So hopefully that gave you guys a little bit more context on how this event was run. With all of that finally out of the way, let's get right into these tandem battles. Alright boys, kicking off these tandem battles in round 1, these are our starting drivers. There are 11 in total, and we're going to get kicked off with the very first battle here between Pokeplayer 45 and Damaged GeeOhGee in the Remus behind him. Pokeplayer 45, although he's in the Fudo and this car is pretty underpowered, is really doing his best to hold these lines, as you guys can see, swinging it wide to start, and Damaged GeeOhGee does seem to straighten out there in the Remus and then actually passes Pokey because of the speed difference there. But yeah, Pokey's doing a good job of trying to adhere to those lines, and you can see Damaged GeeOhGee out in front straightens out a bit and has to transition and really doesn't do the best job of following the line, but still overall a pretty good run by both drivers. They finish it off pretty strong, and yeah, that's a pretty good first round. And then moving into the second round where we switch the lead and chase, we've got lead with Damaged GeeOhGee in the Remus and then Pokeplayer chasing him, and already you can see that massive speed difference. Damage pulls out a huge gap over Pokey on the entrance there, but then kind of straightens out, but he does a little bit of a better job adhering to that line that we've set. Pokeplayer, although there is a pretty big speed difference and he's not getting really good proximity, is making a really good attempt to try to hold out that line as best as possible and as smoothly as he can. Damage does another correction and kind of straightens out there. A lot of unnecessary transitions there, and then Pokey actually swings it a little bit further inside and both drivers finish. So based upon that round, the winner was actually voted for Pokeplayer 45. Moving into the next battle, we have W Don and the Fudo GTX out in front in green, and then the Hex Kid chasing him in the Remus. And as you guys can see here, very strong entry by both drivers. Don's doing a really good job holding out a really wide line on the entrance, and then Hex Kid is obviously doing a really good job of getting on his door and trying to stay as close as possible to him, which is really good. Overall, a very strong run by both drivers. You can see Hex does a little bit on the inside, but then swings it further out to kind of meet up with Don there, and then a little bit of a straighten out, but still very strong run by both drivers and very smooth overall. Then obviously switching roles here, we have the Hex Kid pulling out a huge gap over Don on the entrance. A little bit of a squirrely entry, but he eventually starts swinging it. A little bit of a correction there. Doesn't really hold the line, but gets right back into it here. Hits that right clipping point and that inside zone, and then swings it as wide as he can to try to make the most of that Remus's power band. Swings it wide here. He's got a really big gap on Don, but there were a couple errors with his lines, so based upon that, we voted the winner to be Don. And then moving into the next battle, we have Doodle God in the OG Fudo versus I'm Poppy Your Fran in the Remus chasing behind him. Very good entry, a little bit of a shallow entry by Doodle in the Fudo, and obviously Poppy's doing his best to stay on his door. Again, there is a pretty big speed difference there, so it does kind of make it tough for the Fudo to kind of make up for that and really kind of pull a gap on the Remus, and you'll see that as well when we go to the chase and lead run switched. But still, very good run by both drivers. Doodle straightens a little bit, but again, Poppy's doing a really good job of kind of slamming on his door. A little bit of a correction there by Doodle right before he finishes the run, and then both drivers leave cleanly. So moving into the next battle, we have Poppy on the lead, and you can already see, again, massive speed difference between the Remus. He's slowing down a bit to kind of allow the Fudo to catch up, but then he starts swinging, and he holds this line almost perfectly, swings it wide to the outside zones almost perfectly, and he swings and hits this inside clipping zone very, very well. And you can see he's miles ahead of the OG Fudo in the back there. Swings it really wide here to get that line all perfect, and he finishes out, and then the Fudo is a decent distance behind him. So based off of that, and also of the corrections that DoodleGod made in the first round, Poppy is considered the winner for this battle. Then in the next battle, we have No Front versus Biker Guy 559, both in remises this time, so it's supposed to be a little bit more equalized here. But as you guys can see, Biker in the yellow S13 in the back kind of straightens out to start and then eventually spins out. No Front's doing a good job of adhering to that line, and he's holding a pretty smooth speed as well. So Biker Guy does have a little bit of room to kind of pull the gap, straightens out a bit there, and then starts swinging it, and then kind of an unnecessary correction there, and then does his best to kind of stay on that line. But No Front's just got that consistent line really down pat. They switch roles here, and then Biker is now on the lead in that yellow S13. Overall, let's see this entry. Pretty good entry. He swings it wide, but he does eventually spin out totally, and then No Front pulls the gap and actually passes him, and it's kind of a game of catch up from Biker here from now on. He spins out again. I know the remus is a little squirrely and it doesn't hold the most angle, but maybe a little bit more careful with the power output. He's kind of straightening out here, not doing the best job, but he tries to actually pull the gap and does a decent job of picking up some speed, and then spins out again. So yeah, he's finished this round, and I think it's pretty obvious based on this, but basically the winner for that round was No Front. So moving into the next battle, here we have SXV Ziffer in the Karen Fudo GTX, the purple one on the right, and then we have Alpha Wolf chasing him. Alpha Wolf enters a little bit early. Zephyr is doing a really good job of hitting that line, but actually clips the inside pole there. So Wolf passes him, actually very smooth pass by Wolf, which is really good. Wolf's doing a pretty good job of holding the line, swings it a little bit wide there, which isn't going to get him in the best position to get on that line for that really wide outside zone there, but he does his best to kind of recoup, and he doesn't hit that pole, which is really good. So overall, a very strong chase run with a pass, which is kind of interesting. Then they switch roles, and Wolf is leading again, and then pretty strong entry by both drivers, and I think Zephyr got caught up in the poles back there. That's why he lost a little bit of speed, but overall a really good job by him to get back up onto Alpha Wolf's door. Very good job of that. Wolf kind of cuts that clipping point a little bit inside, but is still doing a pretty good job of holding that line a little bit more inside there than he would have liked to, but still swings it wide to get on the rest of that line for the remainder of this run. So based upon that, very, very good round by both drivers. So we actually chose on doing a one more time. So basically both drivers will do the run again, and we'll see how they do. So again, here we have Wolf on the lead. He enters a little bit early, but is able to swing it wide enough, and he actually hits the poles and straightens out a bit. A little bit of a correction there, but gets right back on that line pretty quickly. He swings it a bit wide there, kind of allowing a lot of room for Zephyr to get back on his door, which he does his best to do. Swings it wide there, and he straightens a little bit, but is able to get right back out and swing it wide so he can get back on that line. And yeah, overall, a very strong run for the lead, and then Zephyr did a very smooth job of getting on that line for the chase run. Then they switch roles, and then we have Zephyr on the lead once again, and pretty good entry by both drivers. Both are swinging it real wide, almost out to practically hitting those poles. Both are doing a really good job of hitting all those outside and inside zones. Wolf does a little bit of a rough transition there, and kind of rubs the back fender of Zephyr's car, but still does a good job of getting back on that line. A little bit of a correction by Zephyr there, but still very strong run by both drivers. Wolf is slamming on his door. Oh my gosh, straightens out a little bit to kind of get around that little area of grass, but still does a good job of getting on Zephyr's door. But despite that, Zephyr with the smooth lines definitely pulled that win. Next up, we have my buy run. Not really much to say about this one. I did enter with the mid-drive speed boost because I'm trying to kind of account for the speed difference, because I might be up against a Remus and I really don't know. A little bit of a straighten there, but I'm trying to do this as smooth as I can and kind of get used to following that line. That's one thing I focused a lot more on, was really getting the line down and getting that down perfectly, no matter how slow I went. And you'll actually see that when it comes to my first tandem battle, that kind of bites me in the butt, because I'm up against a Remus and the speed difference is pretty insane. But still, for a buy run, I tried to hit every pretty much zone that I could, and I think I did a pretty good job of that. So nothing really exciting there. And moving into round 2, we have the first few drivers eliminated, and then we have Damage and Alpha Wolf actually returning, basically to kind of even out the final driver count, because there were an odd number of drivers to start. Anyways, moving into this first battle between Don and No Front, very good entries by both drivers. Now I'm actually not inside one of these cars, so it's a little bit easier for me to spectate and see just how much both drivers are getting on each other's doors, which is great. But yeah, overall, very smooth lines by both of these drivers. They did an absolutely insane job of not only hitting all the zones, but No Front did a great job keeping up on Don's door. And again, probably because of the speed difference between the Remus drivers and the Fudo GTX, but still very good run by both drivers. And then here is the swapped run. So we have no front on the lead, pretty big gap there, but Don actually enters quick enough and smoothly enough to be able to close that gap, which is really hype. So yeah, you guys can see there, both very smooth lines by both drivers. Don is a little bit behind no front, but he's still doing a very good job of adhering to that smooth line. And again, oh my gosh, like this is such a good battle. A little bit more of a gap prevalent now with no front out in front, but still Don does a really good job of closing that gap. And man, that is a really good job by both drivers. But based on that vote, we had to choose Don as the winner, but it was a very close battle. Next up, we have actually Zephyr now against PokePlayer 45, which is a pretty interesting battle because it's an old Fudo versus a new one. Already you can kind of see the speed difference there. PokePlayer's doing his best to kind of stay on Zephyr's door and try to pull as much speed out of that OG Fudo as he can. Zephyr is swinging it super wide to kind of stay on that line. He's doing a really smooth job of that, and obviously Pokey is definitely doing his best to catch up. Straightens out a bit there, but is still able to get back on that line and swing it wide enough for the last portion of the run there. Pretty big gap, but again, Pokey still did a pretty good job of staying on that line. So both drivers did a really good job there, and we're going to swap it up. So now Pokey's on the lead and Zephyr's in the Fudo, which he kind of has the advantage there because he can pull out a little bit more speed from the Fudo GTX. And as you guys can see there, he gets right on his door very early, has to slow down a bit and do a little bit of a correction to kind of prevent himself from fully running into Pokey, but is able to pull that gap pretty close very quickly there. Very smooth runs by both. Pokey straightens out a little bit, but still they both swing it out really wide there for the remainder of the line. Zephyr is getting right on his door there. Very competitive battle by both drivers, and they had a very strong finish for both of them. So based on that, again, we did another one more time because that was super close. So running it back again, now we have Zephyr on the lead and Pokey on the chase. Again, very strong entry by both drivers, and Zephyr actually spins it just a little bit and has to correct to get back on that line. Yeah, a little bit of oversteer there. He slows down a bit, which actually allows Pokey to kind of close in on his door there, which is awesome. Really close tandem battle. Pokey's doing a really good job on the chase, again, considering that his car doesn't have as much power. But again, yeah, very strong finish by both. Zephyr starts to finally pull out a little bit of a gap on him, and he does a very good smooth exit to that run, although there was that correction in the beginning. Then we run it back, and we've got Pokey on the lead. He's really trying to pick up speed there. There we go. Strong entry by both drivers there. Zephyr's playing it safe this time, so that way he doesn't slam into Pokey because of that speed difference, but very smooth run. Really good lines by both drivers there, and Zephyr's able to kind of close that gap on his door. Very good job here. Pokey's doing a really good job kind of pushing that Fudo to his limits. Zephyr swings it a bit wide and hits one of those holes, has to do a little bit of a correction there, but still is able to kind of close that gap pretty quickly. And then a very strong finish once again by both drivers. But based off of that, we actually voted PokePlayer 45 as the winner for that battle. So that's great. Moving into the next one, we have probably one of the best tandem runs I've ever had in GTA. I'm on the lead here with Poppy as the chase, and as you guys can see here, I was like fully focused on getting this line as good as I could, and I tried to hit literally every zone as good as I possibly could. Although again, I'm going pretty slowly, I did try to hit every zone because I know I'm kind of at a disadvantage because of speed, but I still think I did a pretty damn good job of adhering to that line. I was able to swing it really wide. I didn't kind of miss the mid-drive speed boost, so I was able to make the most out of the Fudo's speed, and overall a very strong finish. I think I did a pretty good job on the lead, and Fran absolutely killed it on the chase. And now moving in, we switch positions. I'm on the chase now, and I try to enter as early as I can and try to pull that gap and kind of close that gap pretty quickly, but Fran in the Remus is just so fast, so I kind of accepted at that point that Fran had like so much of a gap on me that I couldn't keep up, so I just tried to get the line as smooth as I possibly could, which I think I did a pretty good job of, but you'll see the results of this in a little bit. But yeah, I tried to hit the line as best I could, but again, just such a huge gap between me and the Remus. So because of that, and because Fran did such a good job on that chase, he has to be the winner of this round. I'm not even mad about it. That was an amazing run by Fran, so he's gonna move on. So next up, we're actually gonna bring back Alpha Wolf and Damage to this round because we're trying to get an even number of drivers to go into the third round. So we're bringing it back with these guys, doing another tandem run here, and as you guys can see, Wolf is really killing it with these lines. Wolf is doing a really good job of adhering to those lines. He's swinging it super wide, a little bit of a correction there, and Damage kind of picks up way too much speed and has to correct. So yeah, definitely a bit of a rough line for the Remus, but they're still able to finish really strong. All right, so now switching that up, we've got Damage on the lead in the Remus once again, and Wolf chasing him in the Fudo. As you can see, really fast entry by both drivers, and Wolf's doing his best to kind of make up that speed difference there. Damage actually does a really good job of adhering to the line here. He's got that speed advantage, and he's also keeping it real smooth smooth with hitting all those zones. So big gap there. It's kind of hard for me to actually record that because, you know, the drivers are so far apart, but both are still doing a pretty good job there. Wolf is staying pretty smooth, and Damage's run has got a lot of corrections, but he still finishes pretty strong, and Wolf also did have a little bit of a correction there as well. But based off that run, we actually chose for them to do a one more time, so we're gonna run it back. So once again here, we've got Damage on the lead, and we've got Wolf on the chase. So let's see this entry. Very fast entry there, and Damage actually fully spins out and goes right into those poles there. He recovers and tries to get back on that line, but I think the Damage is kind of done at that point. Wolf is doing the best job as he can to kind of stay on that line and also get kind of close to Damage, but again, you guys can see that speed difference is pretty apparent. So yeah, Wolf is gonna try his best to stay on that line. Damage is gonna kind of cut it a little bit inside. He's not swinging it as wide as he should be. He straightens out there, but overall a pretty strong finish by both drivers. Next up, we switch it up again. We've got Wolf on the lead and the Remus on the chase, so let's see what that's like. Really strong entry by Wolf. He swings it super wide and super fast, and Damage actually spins out and almost goes into that parking spot. And now it's just a game of catch up because Wolf has that gap, and he's able to maintain that gap while also keeping a very, very smooth line, hitting all of those outside zones really well. A little bit of a correction there, but again, he's pulled enough of a gap on the Remus that it's not really going to matter at this point. So yeah, very strong finish by Wolf, and Damage did a pretty good job of recouping. He actually goes through the exit backwards, but anyways, obviously the winner of that round is Alpha, and we're gonna move on to round 3. And here are the 4 remaining drivers. Again, we pulled Alpha Wolf back as kind of like a wild card, and now he's actually one of the runners up, so he's gonna go right into a battle later on. But first we have Don versus I'm Pappy, and this is a very strong run by both drivers. Don pulls a little bit too much angle there and almost spins it, but is able to recover pretty quickly, and he's able to hold those lines really, really smoothly. And obviously Fran, you guys saw based on my run with him, he is insanely good at the tandems. A little bit of a bump there, so both drivers are going to actually reset there. It looked like Poppy clipped his quarter panel, and that led to Don spinning out. So based on that, they're going to run it back, and they're going to switch roles, so that run is done. This time around, we have Poppy on the lead and Don on the chase. Again, doing his best to kind of make up for that speed difference. He does a really good job of that, swings it a bit wide there, but is able to kind of close that gap between him and the Remus. But Poppy, again, he's just so quick with this and so smooth with this that he's able to hold that gap against Don. As you guys can see, Don kind of did what I did. He kind of accepted the difference in speed and the kind of massive gap that exists between the two, and is doing his best to hold that line as smooth as he can, and he does a really good job of that. But Poppy is, again, just really insane with holding that speed and keeping a smooth line, so he is going to win this battle and go on to the next round. Alright, so moving on to the next battle, we have Wolf on the lead. Again, kind of a wild card pick, and the Futo GTX there, pulling out a really, really fast entry. He's swinging it super wide, almost goes back into those poles there, so he has to correct a little bit, which allows Pokey to get a little bit of a closer gap to his door. But overall, very smooth lines by both drivers. Alpha Wolf's doing a really good job of staying on all those zones there, and Pokey's doing his best to keep up in that OG Futo. Straightens out a little bit, but is able to swing it wide enough to get the remainder of that run all done and smooth. Alpha Wolf does a little bit of a correction out towards those holes there. He swung it a bit wide, but overall, a very, very strong run by both. Switching it up a bit, now we have Pokey on the lead, and Wolf kind of trying to slow down a bit so that way he can get on Pokey's door very early on. Really, really good entry by Pokey, and Wolf does a very good job of absolutely gluing his door there. A little bit of a correction, and he almost actually passes Pokey, but then kind of corrects himself and slows down a bit so he can get back on Pokey's door. Very, very, very close battle here. Both drivers kind of swing it a little bit further inside. Pokey kind of closes the door on him there, but is able to swing it wide enough, and Alpha kind of stays glued to his door that entire run. So very, very strong tandem run there. The speed difference is pretty apparent, but both had a very, very, very strong run. So based on that, we're going to do another one more time to see who is the best driver out of both. So running it back once again, we've got Alpha on the lead and Pokey on the chase. And Alpha pulls out a really, really fast entry here, does a really good job of swinging it super, super wide, and Pokey is just kind of struggling to keep up a bit. But we've got Wolf here holding a pretty decent line, slows down a bit, which allows Pokey to get a little bit closer on that gap. But as you guys can see, very, very big difference between them. It's kind of hard for me to film both at once, but yeah, Wolf picks up so much speed on that back corner there. A little bit of a correction towards the end, but he finishes very strong. Pokey swings it out pretty wide too, and both drivers, again, very strong finish by Pokey, although there was that pretty big speed difference. Switching it up once again, we've got Pokey here on the lead, and Wolf kind of pedaling it so he can keep up on Pokey's door. Very, very strong entry by both. Oh my gosh, he's again kind of staying glued to Pokey's door. He's doing his best to kind of keep in that line, which is great. Very, very strong tandem battle by both drivers here. Pokey kind of closes the door on him, and Alpha a little bit straightens out towards that little grass region back there, but is able able to swing it wide enough for the exit of the line. Very, very strong finish by both drivers. I think Pokey did his best for the speed difference, and yeah, really, really good battle there. So based on that result, Alpha Wolf is the winner of that round. So moving into the final battle here in round 4, these are our remaining 2 drivers. We have Alpha Wolf and Poppy Your Fran in the Remus. Let's see how it goes. So first off, we have our lead run with Alpha on the lead and obviously Poppy on the chase. Really strong entry by both, and right off rip, Poppy is gluing Wolf's door. Really, really good runs by both. Wolf tried to pull as much speed out as he could, and he's staying very smooth on that line, but again, Poppy is like a magnet with him. He's able to keep on that door really easily with that Remus just being so quick. And yeah, very strong entries and very strong runs by both drivers so far. A little bit of a correction there towards that back corner, but still really, really strong battle by both. So really a good job by both drivers. Moving into the next run, we have Poppy on the lead and Wolf on the chase, and right off rib, you can see how much of a gap Poppy's able to pull there. Alpha Wolf does a really good job actually of trying to close that gap. Has a bit of a correction there as Poppy swings the wide and is able to maintain as much speed as he can. A little bit of a cut there on the line by Wolf, but is able to get pretty close to Poppy's door. But again, that speed difference is trying to make itself apparent towards that back corner there. Both drivers swing it really wide, but again, Fran has such a large speed difference there that he pretty much cinches the win. As you guys can see, he is the overall winner of this comp. Damn, good job, Poppy. Dub. And that's going to conclude my coverage of this awesome tandem drift battle. Obviously, shout out to the winner, Fran, as well as everybody else who participated and the teams that hosted. Thank you guys all so much for watching and supporting my content. Take care and have an awesome holiday.